brilliance on display. Everything was truly inspiring.
And today we are back with even more. More stories, more discussions, and more unforgettable moments.
This festival is not just an event, it's a celebration of knowledge, creativity, and the endless possibilities that come when great minds come together.
From history to future visions, today's lineup is packed with thought-provoking sessions and exciting dialogues.
So let us dive right in.
And to begin with, we invite you all to join us at Rangdarshini Hall for our very first exciting session of the day.
Welcome to a session that celebrates the beauty and the serenity of nature. To guide us through this insightful discussion on nature writing and its cathartic value, it's my privilege to invite two exceptional individuals to the stage. Anuradha Kumar Jain ji, the author of the book we are launching here today, and Mr. Janhwij Sharma, who will engage her in an enriching conversation. Please join me in welcoming them with a huge round of applause. Also called Shalini Mahajan ma'am on the stage. And now let us unveil and launch Delhi, a nature journal. This isn't just any launch, but it's your chance to be among the first ones to own the copy of this incredible artwork. And here's the cherry on top. You can get your copy signed by the author right here after the session. It's a book that promises to awaken our senses and deepen our connection with nature and the world. Delhi, a nature journal by Anuradha Jain ji, a book that gently reminds us of the magic of nature that exists all around us, even in the bustling metropolis like Delhi. From the golden blooms of summer to the indigo skies of the monsoon, the chirping sparrows, fragrant jasmines, and the fluttering butterflies, this book takes the readers on a journey through the natural rhythms of the capital city. Accompanied by the beautiful illustrations, this journal is more than just a record of nature. It's an invitation to pause, observe, and reconnect. It's a call to let nature soothe, calm, and heal us, even amidst the chaos of urban life. Let us now immerse ourselves in a conversation that will inspire us to rediscover the beauty of everyday natural world around us. We are thrilled to begin today with a session that bridges worlds of nature and literature, offering us a glimpse into the healing and transformative power of the written word. It's an honor to introduce two extraordinary individuals who embody these ideals. Dr. Anuradha Kumar Jain ji, a celebrated author whose deep connection to nature breathes life into her writing. A geographer turned storyteller with a PhD in geography, her debut work, Written on the Wind, won critical acclaim and is now being adapted into an OTT series. A multifaceted artist, from embroidery and cloud spotting, her diverse passions bring unique vibrancy to her stories. Joining this insightful discussion is Mr. Janhwij Sharma, a pioneer in heritage conservation and cultural preservation. India's heritage steward as Additional Director Journal, Conservation World Heritage of the Archaeological Survey of India, he has overseen successful restoration of heritage sites like Cambodia and facilitated addition of 16 sites to UNESCO's World Heritage List. A poet and a documentation, a global advocate for preservation with numerous publications including Architectural Heritage Ladakh, he continues to inspire efforts in cultural conservation worldwide. Together, these two luminaries will explore how nature inspires creativity and promotes healing and helps preserve our culture and our ecological heritage. Can we start the session with a huge round of applause for them?
Well, very good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to see you all here, particularly the young minds that I see in the back. And I hope this conversation helps us invigorate this passion about heritage and passion about nature. Also, congratulations, Dr. Anuradha Kumar Jain, for the launch of this book. But I had a privilege of perusing it, going through it. And there were 2 or 3 things that struck me. I'll talk about the book as well, but you know, when you were giving an introduction, you talked about that she is engaged in cloud spotting. That's the word which struck me, and I think I would request you to explain that a bit, as much as your title of the first book, which is again equally exciting, equally poetic, if I may say so, and that is her first book, which is Written on the Wind. And I think it will be useful for us all if you just give us a glimpse about what your first book was all about. Another thing which I noticed about her was in her introduction and her brief biography. While all of us do our education or complete our education, and the PhD is the highest level that we can attain, in order to have some better job prospects, particularly those who are into the domain of academics. Herein, it's one of the rare examples where you have the passion which is leading her to pursue the highest degree on the land. And that's something which I thought was very unusual about her. So maybe her journey of her, how she started to where she reached is something that we would like to hear from you yourself. Now, I must admit that before, when I was asked to read along with her this book, and the way the title was Delhi's Delhi a Nature Journal, I really thought that it would be an inventory of trees or inventory of flora and fauna that is associated with the city. And then when I looked at the cover, which I'm sure most of you can also see, and I would encourage you, after this session that, some of you would be willing to look into it and buy it as well. So the cover features one of the prominent monuments, and I'm a monuments man and I can't help but notice that. It's Bada Gumbad of Lodi Gardens in Delhi. And here you have, in the foreground, a tree in full bloom. And there is a little chair and a table with a cup of tea on it, and it evokes a certain sense of charm, an old world charm to it. And therefore, obviously, as I said, that because I belong to the world of monuments, it drew my attention immediately. And I started, obviously, reading it. And Dr. Jain, I must tell that I read it over 4 or 5 sessions. And I thought it was fascinating, and I've written certain comments on it. If you don't mind, I can read it so that I don't lose, any point that I wanted to make. First of all, I think it is a brilliant, first-hand, gripping account, and a very personalized one about the author's personal observations about nature, which is perhaps in her backyard, or, of course, the city that we are talking about, which is Delhi. And therefore, she draws that intimate connect with Delhi's flora and fauna, its natural heritage, and how they have shaped the unique character of the city for centuries. And historically speaking, we all know that Delhi is believed to be the city of, it's a combination of 7 historic cities, starting from Indraprasth to Shahjahanabad, which is old Delhi presently, and even the Lutyens Delhi, which was established by the British, and now the modern Delhi, which is now sprawling, as we all are aware of. And that not only we are talking or interpreting the city in terms of its urban fabric or in terms of its monuments, etc., but also in terms of its open spaces, its gardens. For example, the ridge of the Delhi as a city is known as the lungs of the city. And then you have several parks and gardens. Lodi Garden tops the list in terms of the gardens that we have. We have Buddha Jayanti Park, we have Nehru Park, and we also have the recently christened Amrit Van of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So there are a number of these gardens in Delhi which actually lend a very unique character to the city, and obviously one of the very strong attributes of this nature or the natural heritage is its wealth in terms of the flora and fauna. And if I recall Pradeep Krishan's book on Delhi's natural heritage, he records more than, I think, 400 species of trees and trees that are present in the city and its immediate environs. So therefore, Delhi is not only the capital city from that point of view, it's also a very interesting kaleidoscopic green city. Also, if you go through her book, where she talks about when she got up and what she observed, and there were mynas in front, and the birds were singing and dancing and all that eloquence that she mentions, there is that very interesting sense of picturesqueness and romanticism. And just to define these terms for you, these are the terms which were associated with the landscapes, with the movements in art, literature, architecture, in the sort of a larger part of the 19th and the early 20th century. And therefore you had its imprint on a city's layout also. For example, I'm sure you would know that Delhi, which was established by the British, is actually designed on Haussmann's style of architecture or the city planning, where the avenues were created. If we know Chandigarh for that matter, again the avenues were created, and they were not the avenues primarily in terms of the road layouts or the buildings, but also the kind of trees that were planted along the roads. So you had the network of roads, and each particular road type had a peculiar style of a plantation, which gave again a sense of avenues as you would view it. So and in fact, when I was going through her book, I was reminded of Amitav Ghosh, we all know. And he writes, in the bustle of Delhi's streets, there is still a whisper of nature. The breeze that moves through the trees in the parks, the occasional flutter of birds above the traffic, reminding us all that this city too is alive with the pulse of the earth. And I think her book reminds us of that as we go through it. And she starts from 1st of January. It's a day-by-day account. Every day that she observes something new, something that didn't happen previously, and keeps a very meticulous journal and a record of that. And therefore, from 1st of Jan to 31st of December, you see what a variety or glimpse of Delhi's nature. And when I was going through her book, another thing that struck me was how she has interpreted the city and its mood through a variety that is posed by the climate. So she writes, for example, if it is the winters, she's associating it with fog, with the dreary weather, light rains. She talks about spring. She talks about flowers, birds, azure skies, freshness in air, full of love and life. Summer, harsh, very unforgiving, dust storms, yet the nature is surviving. She talks about rain, which washes away the veil of dust and pollution, and everything looks fresh and verdant, replenishes the dry water bodies. She talks about, when she reaches autumn, again, she finds it very sensual and very strong. October and November not only are important from the point of view of the fairs and festivals, but again, it has its own imprint on the nature. These are also the driest months of the year, and it's a transition between autumn to winter. And when the winter arrives, the winter chill, the shorter days, the festive cheer, and of course at times the outcast sky. So she gives us, I was telling her that we all live, I've lived in Delhi for now more than 30 years, and what she said, I could see it all, I could relate to you all, but I hadn't actually observed it the way she did. So it was quite a fascinating account, I must say, Dr. Jain, that you've actually documented, and many congratulations to you for this very inspiring, very thought-provoking at times, this book that you have brought about. I can go on and on, I know that. I'm supposed to speak a lot, but then here I'll shut myself up. And I would let the author speak about herself, about the book, and thereafter we can then have a discussion and engage largely with the audience. So I think with these words, I'll now go quiet, and over to you, Dr. Jain. Thank you.
Good morning, or rather I think it's good afternoon now. Good morning. Okay. I'm delighted to see so many children in the audience today, because I do feel that the way forward for us to preserve our environment and nature is through children. So I'm delighted to see you all here, and I do hope you will be inspired by the end of this session to do your little bit for the environment. He has introduced the book so beautifully. I don't think that I can add. Who's this? Mr. Sharma has introduced the book so beautifully that he's left very little scope for me to introduce it. He's done that, but I will tell you some specific points which he mentioned. Like he said that, as you know, the book is written month-wise, and it follows Delhi through the seasons and through the changing weather patterns, the flora and the fauna, and clouds and the sky. And contrary to popular belief, Delhi is a beautiful city. It is not just urban clusters and high-rises and chaos and malls. It has beautiful tree-lined avenues, it has well-laid-out parks, it has gardens, and it's leafy, and it has a very rich bird life. So I think there are more than 450 species of birds ever counted in Delhi, both migrants and residents. And on a good day, if you are in one of those bird races, which is essentially that you either go with friends or with yourself to see how many birds you can spot in one day. If it's winter and you have the migrants and you get lucky, you might be able to spot more than 250 bird species in a single day. And this is in a uncompromising urban space. So it's what I tell everybody is that nazariya badal ke dekho. We all pass through the same roads every day, we pass through the same avenues, but we look, but we don't really see and we notice the beauty around us. And I'll give you a personal example for this, that when Delhi has notorious traffic jams, so if I'm out in the car with my husband, which is very often, it's very likely that we are going to get stuck in one of the traffic jams. And he will immediately start whining and cribbing and looking at his watch and saying ki ye shehar ab rehne wala nahi hai, and all that nonsense. And I tell him ki khidki se bahar dekho. Most of the observations, most of them in this book are from these jams, because if there is trees, Delhi's tree-lined avenues, so you see the trees and you see the changing seasons through the trees, because trees have narratives of their own. There are times when birds nest, there are times when it goes to seed, there are times when there may be a barbet in the tree. So it's basically the way you look at it. So that's what I would like to say to the children. And not only Delhi, Bhopal is a beautiful green city. It's a city of lakes, and you have so many green spaces around here. And Bhopal is also, you are fortunate if you are bird watcher, that it is in one of, there are 9 flyways in the world which migrating birds, especially water birds, take. So Delhi is right on the route of the Central Asian Flyway, which comes from North Siberia down to Maldives. So you get a huge amount of migratory water birds and other birds here. So it's a beautiful city and you're living here, so enjoy it. That's what I would like to say. And another topic that you touched on, cloud spotting, which was the first thing you said. Cloud spotting is this, that when we were children, I had friends around, and children are fond of collecting things. कि मेरी stamp की collection है, और मेरी books ki hai, and if you're a young girl, you have nail polishes and lipsticks and stuff like that. I had no collection. So I was one day just whining to my mom ki I need to start a collection. To which she told me, why don't you collect clouds? So it struck me as so, an impossible thing to do. So then she went on to say, collection doesn't mean ownership. You can collect clouds by looking at them, enjoying them, and they become yours, So I started spotting clouds, and I take photographs all the time, car se lean karke and all. So it's been very enriching. I think it gives me a view to the sky. It gives another dimension to my life. And at night I look at the moon and its phases, and I see the stars in the sky. Though it's very rare to see stars in Delhi, it's a very vague, dusty sky most of the time, although winters are different. So it adds another dimension to life, and I think all of us should explore that. Anything you would like me to ask me specifically?
No, when you said about...
Yeah.
No, I think fascinating what you talked about cloud spotting. The only thing that came to my mind as children, as a child, what I used to do, maybe all of you also do the same thing. We used to sort of imagine faces in the clouds.
Of course.
We used to draw that. Somewhere we are seeing a tiger, somewhere seeing something else, somewhere seeing something else. So we used to relate that way. So when you said that, it reminded me of that. But let us know about that, your first book. The title is so fascinating. Let us know about that as well.
My first book, Written on the Wind, is totally different from this. It is the story of two women, very strong women, in the years leading up to the partition of India. So both my side of my parents were refugees from Pakistan, and I grew up hearing those stories, and somewhere I felt they needed to be told. So this is the story of two women and how, their lives shape out against the turmoil that India is going through that time. And it's based, therefore, it starts at the turn of the century, and it ends 2 years after the partition and shifts to Bombay for those 2 years. So it's totally different genre from this.
This one. No, see, one thing that struck me, as it is a journal. So as I was mentioning that, starting from the 1st of January to 31st of December, you've almost every day you've recorded something or the other, and therefore it gives us that overall perspective, the overall context. But I thought I'll ask you, but this is something that you wouldn't have thought of on the 31st December of a particular year, that from next day I'll start writing about it. The journey must have started much earlier than that. So I wanted to understand, how did it start for you? And therefore the way it has culminated. So what is that journey like? I hope I don't sound like a schoolmaster here, but I just wanted to also understand that over the years that you might have been observing these fascinating details that you have penned down in your book, have you noticed any changes, any irreversible damages or concerns? Something that has saddened you, something that has alarmed you, and you thought that, okay, this must stop and this shouldn't happen. So we wanted to understand, because hidden within these words is much more to it. That's how I could understand, as I said, when I was going through your book. Would you like to share some of your experiences and accounts? But how did it start?
Okay. So this journal has been several decades in the making. I mean, I didn't write it as कि इसको एक दिन publish करेंगे, but I took nature notes for myself every day, like weekly diary entries, or if I saw something interesting. So this has grown from that, and it doesn't all belong to 1 year. though I have tried to keep the basics correct, like the full moons and all are all of 1 year. But these are entries which are over several years. And I was introduced to nature by my mother, who even in the zamana when, sustainability and environmentalism were not buzzwords that they are today, she was a very passionate naturalist. Down our road, agar somebody is lopping the tree, which nobody bothered those days, she would immediately march down and fight with that person. So the sense of wonderment has stayed with me, that nature thing. And I sometimes think that there is magic at work in nature. Flowers bloom and fruiting trees will go to seed, birds will migrate, all at their appointed hour. There is no conflict, there's no violence, everything happens in harmony. So it's a sort of a magic there. And what you asked me, what I feel sorry about, I'll give you the example of sparrows. When we first shifted to Delhi, this is about 23, 22 years ago, we lived in a small apartment with a very tiny balcony. So wahan pe, I had kept an old watering can for decoration. वो जो पुराने ज़माने के होते थे ना, वो tin के watering cans, which was immediately taken over by a squirrel for nesting. But what I noticed was that there were so many sparrows. If we had a tea in the morning and we left a few crumbs of biscuits there, they would certainly come. But I don't know how much of it is scientifically true, but I do feel that pigeons have had a lot to do in urban areas to drive away the sparrows, Like then our flat building was taken over by pigeons. And they are also birds, I love them, it's nature, but they are aggressive by nature. So they drove away, I think, all the sparrows. Even in my house here in Delhi, I keep a little bird feeder. So all the birds will eat in harmony with each other. The babblers will come, the tree pie will come, and we think of the tree pie as a bully, but it's rather timid. But when the pigeons come, they will drive everybody away aggressively. So I don't know whether the decline is naturally because of a lot of other scientific reasons, but what I have observed in urban areas is that pigeons have had something to do with it, and I'm very sad about it, I do get some sparrows, but jitni aati thi utni nahi ab. So that is this thing.
I think this issue with the pigeons that you have mentioned, I think a few of my colleagues from ASI are also here. In monuments also, I think they are one of the threats, I would say, in a sense that their droppings are very acidic in nature.
Very.
And that is what damages the surfaces of the monuments, particularly if the surfaces are very delicate in nature. They are carvings or they are inlays or whatever it is. So they do have a tendency of damaging that as well. So most of the monuments, not only in Delhi but across the country, I think that's one of the problems that we face. Now that we're talking about it, I think one thing that I'm quite tempted to ask, have you visited our monuments? I'm not saying from the point of view of history, but for example, Delhi has 173 monuments, ASI
visited,
monuments.
Yeah.
We have 3 World Heritage Sites, Qutub, Humayun's Tomb and Red Fort. And recently, I'm sure you would have been there, in Sundar Nursery, which also has 4 ASI monuments, but it is a 128-acre sprawling landscape that has been recently built. So have you been visiting our monuments not only from the point of view of appreciating the monuments, but also from your point of view? Because I think I've noticed in Red Fort that you have an immense variety, from eagles to snakes to all kinds of fauna that you see over there. So have you also been visiting some of these places?
Yes, my family and I are, my children, husband and I, we are very fond of monuments and history, and we read about them, and I think we've visited most of them, my daughter especially. She is, Safdarjung's tomb and Humayun's tomb. She'll go to paint. The illustrations in the book are by my daughter, So she is if you see the first and the last flap, there are monuments there. So we are we've been visiting them, and you are right, in Sundar Nursery, I think I saw one or two rare trees, jiska only example is in the Sundar Nursery. So you're right, and they are great, they are the lungs of the city, so to speak, Yeah. So, and even in Golf Club has monuments, and the Lodi Garden has monuments. So we've been visiting them all, yes.
Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. Tell me one thing. It struck to me, and I was, when we were having a brief conversation before, people, I think, whenever there is a long weekend, and I think the neo-urban middle class and upper class is all SUV savvy kind of a, gentry. And we all love wherever there is a long weekend to go up in the hills, to go to the nature reserves, the wild, the forest reserves and all those things. I'm sure you would have been asked this earlier also, that while of course going there has a very different purpose, we don't have tigers in Delhi, thankfully so, but how would you, what message would you give it to them so that they can appreciate the nature in their own backyard? I mean, so of course go to natural reserves and all that, but you have nature here also. So how would you encourage?
Greenery that you keep in your backyard, in your balcony. So you don't have to go anywhere. Nature thrives everywhere, If you try keeping some water out for birds in the summer, a small pot in your tiny balcony will do, and you will see how many birds come there. So you don't really need to, visit for green spaces. For the blue part of it, yes, you do need to, but Delhi, but Bhopal for that matter has so many lakes. On a casual saunter, you can see birds and herons. I saw herons yesterday while we were driving down to the hotel, passing the big lake. So you don't need to really go anywhere to enjoy nature. All these observations are from an urban area, the ones in the book. They are not from any reserve or some of them, yes, because we have, Delhi has reserves, like you have Sultanpur Bird Sanctuary and all. But most of them are everyday, like in summer you will have the laburnum trees with the golden shower of flowers, or you can see the color of the clouds in monsoons indigo. You really don't need to go anywhere to enjoy nature. It's right there. You need to pause, to stop, and to look at it.
Very well put, very well said. I think I'm going to take a pause and break here, but I would encourage now from audience, if you would want to ask any question or if you have any comments to make, which I'm sure Dr. Jain would like to respond. So would anybody have any questions, any remarks to make? Meeraji?
Ridge, and there are 21 streams of drains which kind of drain into. So broadly there's a ridge, and then there are these drains. So there are huge amount of water bodies which Delhi has, and it's kind of a protected environment if we had developed it that way.
Yes.
So if we had looked at the ridge, and if we had looked at the water body, like you have the Hoskas and most of the monuments, the moment you cross the bridge, there is a lot of brackish water. So the moment you start moving towards, like the Sultanpur Nursery, is basically a brackish water.
Yes.
you have to cross the ridge to come into this huge green space, which the historical characters used extensively, and they kind of built between the ridge and these monuments. So there is a historical chapters happening there, even in terms of nature. So what happens at Tughlakabad, and then what's happening in Red Fort, and as you move on the other side towards the north. So even if you are addressing this, I think there is a lot of tree chronology which could be taking place there. So have you thought of it that way ever? That the older places may have some old trees?
They do. They have the native trees of Delhi,
Yes.
and Dhau and all. Some of them are only at the ridge, and even beyond the ridge. Baki area mein they've all been finished off. But you are right. There are multi-layers to the vegetation. There are, it's like having diversity hotspots within a city. Yeah. So there are different areas there.
So Anuradha ji, you touched upon a very important subject of, he also said about the pigeons. So pigeons are a very, very big menace in urban India, and my organization has been running a campaign against feeding pigeons. That is the only way that we can bring down the population and save monuments also, because pigeons all over are, like you said, they are the bully birds, and they are driving everyone away, and Delhi had to declare Goraiya as a state bird in 2011, as late as that, because they were disappearing, like vultures were disappearing. So we should try to create awareness against feeding pigeons, and people like you can lead that, because pigeons are actually creating a lot of problem for other birds and biodiversity.
You are absolutely right, and they proliferate. Like if a sparrow comes, 2 sparrows will come, 4. Pigeon, agar ek aa gayi, then there'll be hundreds of them in a few minutes, But they are such strong survivors. I tried to dissuade them. I bought the smallest bird feeder, jo itta chota, just for sparrows, and I put just the food sparrows like. But they come and perch on that, and they break it, and they turn. There seems to be. But I think Delhi government has now put a ban on Delhi. Mein to jagah jagah pe you have this, feeding of pigeons. You have kahin bhi there. But I think Delhi government has now recently banned. It's a good thing. You are right, absolutely.
Do we have scope of further questions?
Yeah, we can take one or two.
I think there's
Ma'am,
this,
good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Ishita Tiwari from Institute for Excellence in Higher Education. Ma'am, I have a question. Do you feel that nature writing is declining? Because these days we find most of the writings, be it prose or be it poetry, delve more into issues like mental health, inner life, and psyche. So, ma'am,
Nature writing has never been popular in India. So, and that was one of the reasons I wrote this book, because whenever I travel abroad or somebody goes, I like to pick up the nature journals. Nature writing is flourishing in the Western world. Almost every city will have its journal. I just read one about the taiga forest in Canada. But in India, there seems to be no awareness or no fondness for writing a nature journal. बहुत कम मिलते हैं. You are right. So maybe you children can write one and get down to observing what you see in nature.
There is a book on Delhi birds which records, that there are some species which have just disappeared from 1975 onwards, and they are not being spotted in. One Foreign Service officer has written a book on Delhi birds. It's a beautiful book which is documenting mainly also many species, but also the birds which have ceased to be,
Common
they
in Delhi.
are not being cited at all since 75 was the last. Some Ganguly has written about that book in 75, and recent book is by the Foreign Service Officer of 1977 batch. But he has documented many species which are not being seen, and therefore he is talking about the habitat conservation.
I think I have bought this book. It's Delhi's Lost Birds or
something
like. I have bought it, but I have yet to read it. Yes.
So have you noticed that certain birds which you saw about 30 years ago are not being seen? That was the question.
I haven't noticed that they've disappeared. I have certainly noticed that they have reduced in number. But they have not disappeared. जितनी पहले थी उतनी नहीं. But मेरे को ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि I saw this bird and I haven't seen it now. Not to my knowledge. Yeah. Except vultures, of course, जो तो अब दिखती ही नहीं है.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So this session has been an extraordinary one, and sorry, we're not talking, like we are short on time. Okay. And ma'am and sir, this conversation was really nice. You both changed our perspective of looking at things. Now, whenever I'll be stuck in traffic, I will definitely look into trees and like observe more. So thank you so much, Dr. Anuradha Kumar Jain, ma'am, for showing us the art of weaving nature into words that touch the soul and spark imagination. Thank you, Mr. Janhwij Sharma, sir, for your insights in conservation as a form of storytelling and your poetic reflections on monuments. Now, before we conclude, our speakers will ask one question from the audience, and the one I request everyone to please stay. We have a question for the audience, and whoever wins will receive a book as a gift. And the book is Living an Enriched Life by Dale Carnegie. Please wait, everyone.
Okay, the question is, who is considered the father of the Indian novel in English? Known for Raj Mohan's wife, R.K. Narayan, Mulk Raj Anand, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, or Raja Rao? Should I repeat the question? Yeah.
Bankim Chandra Chatterjee.
You're right. Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So our winner will receive Living an Enriched Life by Dale Carnegie, a timeless guide to cultivate enthusiasm, courage, and the resilience needed to thrive in every aspect of life. Congratulations. I once again thank our speaker. Thank you so much, sir and ma'am. And I would like to thank the audience for joining us. Thank you so much. Sorry. Now, as we conclude, ma'am, I'm sorry, 1 second. So, this deeply enriching session, I would request Dr. Shalini ma'am to please, a member of our society, to please present our esteemed speaker with a memento as a token of gratitude. Padma Shri Bhil artist Bhuri Bai has created this artwork for BLF 2025, depicting the connection between nature, earth, and human being, and the circulatory inheritance. To our incredible speakers, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom once again. Can we have a huge round of applause for them?